The morning sun had barely peeked through the clouds when Lily arrived at the Gilded Room, a restaurant that glowed with luxury. The kind that made regular folks feel like they should check their bank accounts before even looking at the menu. She tied her apron with practiced hands, her fingers moving quickly. The same fingers that could dance across piano keys with ease. Though no one at work knew that yet. "You're early again," remarked the head chef, nodding as he chopped vegetables with impressive speed. Lily smiled. Traffic was light today. The truth was she needed the extra hours. The rent on her small apartment had gone up again, and between that and her night classes at Westbrook Music Conservatory, every dollar mattered. She'd been at the Gilded Room for 3 years now, watching the wealthy come and go while she poured their water, described the day's specials, and carried away plates with barely touched food that cost more than she made in an hour. The restaurant wouldn't open for another 40 minutes, but there was plenty to do. Lily polished the silverware until she could see her reflection in each spoon. She straightened every napkin, making sure each fold was perfect. The owners demanded excellence, and she delivered it without complaint. The tips were good, and the flexible schedule let her attend her music classes. "Did you hear who's coming tonight?" asked Zoe, another waitress who rushed in with her phone in hand. "That tech billionaire, the one who just bought that social media company. And I heard some movie director is hosting a dinner in the private room." Lily nodded, trying to look impressed, while inside she felt a familiar twist of emotions. She served people daily who had more money than she could imagine, while she counted coins for bus fare and reused tea bags to save money. "Just another Tuesday for us," Lily said with a small laugh, hiding how tired she really was. She hadn't always been a waitress. Once she'd been that girl everyone thought would make it big. The one who could play anything by ear after hearing it once. Her mother had noticed when Lily was just 6, the way she'd sit at her grandmother's old upright piano and pick out tunes from movies and radio songs. But piano lessons cost money they didn't have, especially after her father left. So Lily taught herself. She practiced on the school's out-of-tune piano during lunch breaks. A kind music teacher had given her old theory books, and she'd studied them until the pages were worn thin. By high school she was good, really good, but not good enough for a full scholarship. And partial scholarships didn't pay rent or buy food. Now at 26, she was still chasing that dream, one late-night class at a time. "Lily, you're on tables 12 through 18 tonight," called out the manager, a tall man named Greg who rarely smiled but always noticed when work was done well. "We've got a full house and some VIPs, so bring your A-game." "Always do," she replied, checking her appearance in the mirrored wall. Her dark hair was neatly pulled back, uniform crisp and clean despite being washed countless times. No one would guess she'd been up until 2 a.m. practicing Rachmaninoff for her upcoming recital at the conservatory. The piece was challenging, pushing the limits of her abilities, but that's what she loved about it. The harder the music, the more it pulled her in, made her forget about sore feet and unpaid bills. By 6 o'clock, the Gilded Room hummed with activity. Voices mixed with the gentle clink of glasses and silverware against fine china. The lighting was perfect, bright enough to see the artfully arranged food but dim enough to feel intimate. The walls were a deep burgundy, decorated with original artwork that probably cost more than Lily's entire education. She moved between tables with grace, her steps light and sure. Years of waitressing had taught her how to be present without being noticed, how to anticipate needs before they were voiced. "The salmon is particularly excellent tonight," she told an older couple at table 15. "The chef uses a special cedar plank technique that really brings out the flavor." The man nodded without looking up from his phone. His wife at least offered a small smile. At table 18 sat a group of business executives, 3 men and 2 women in suits that screamed success. They ordered expensive wine and barely glanced at the prices on the menu. "And how is the conservatory going?" asked one of the women as Lily poured her water. She was a regular who, unlike many wealthy patrons, actually remembered details about the staff. "It's going well. Thank you for asking," Lily replied, surprised and touched that the woman remembered. "I have a recital coming up next month. Piano, right?" The woman's eyes were kind. "You know, my company sponsors young artists sometimes. You should send me your information." Lily felt a spark of hope, quickly followed by caution. She'd heard similar offers before that led nowhere. Still, she thanked the woman sincerely and promised to email her. The night continued in its usual rhythm. Lily carried plates of beautifully arranged food, refilled wine glasses, and cleared tables with efficient movements. Her feet began to ache around hour 5, but she pushed through it. The conservatory classes weren't cheap, and neither was the tiny practice room she rented twice a week to play on a real grand piano instead of her second-hand electric keyboard. During a rare, quiet moment, she slipped into the back hallway where a small staff room offered a brief escape. Zoe was already there, scrolling through her phone with tired eyes. "These people tonight, I swear," Zoe sighed. Table 9 sent back their steak 3 times. "The chef nearly threw his knife." Lily laughed softly. "Table 18 isn't too bad. One of them might have a connection for music sponsorships." "Really? That would be amazing." "You're so talented, Lily. I still can't believe that video you showed me from your practice. Your hands were like flying over the keys." Lily shrugged, uncomfortable with praise but grateful for it all the same. Few people in her life now knew about her playing. To most, she was just a reliable waitress who never called in sick and could handle difficult customers with a smile. "5-minute break is up, ladies," called one of the busboys, poking his head in. "The dessert rush is starting." Back on the floor, Lily noticed a commotion near the entrance. The manager was speaking with someone who appeared important. Judging by the nervous smile Greg rarely showed anyone. More guests arrived. Men in tuxedos, women in evening gowns that probably cost more than Lily's yearly tuition. "What's happening?" she whispered to another server who passed by with a tray of champagne. "Some last-minute addition. A charity thing for the arts. They're using the grand piano in the corner that's usually just for show." Lily's heart did a little jump. The piano, a gorgeous Steinway that sat mostly untouched in the corner of the main dining room. She'd eyed it for years, fingers itching to play it just once, but staff were strictly forbidden from touching it. It was decorative, a symbol of sophistication rather than an instrument to be played. As she served chocolate soufflé to her tables, she kept glancing at the piano. A man in a tuxedo was arranging sheet music on the stand while talking rapidly on his phone. He looked stressed, his free hand rubbing his forehead repeatedly. "Is everything all right?" Greg asked him, his manager's instinct for problems kicking in. The man shook his head. "Our pianist has food poisoning. He just called to cancel, and the event starts in 30 minutes. We've got donors who paid thousands to be here tonight, expecting a musical program with dinner." Lily froze mid-step, a half-served plate of tiramisu in her hand. Her heart pounded as an idea, crazy, potentially job-threatening, formed in her mind. She finished serving dessert, took a new drink order, and then, hands slightly shaking, approached Greg. "I couldn't help overhearing," she said quietly. I could play, if you need someone." Greg stared at her as if she'd suggested flying to the moon. "You play piano? Like professionally?" "I'm studying at Westbrook Conservatory. I've been playing for 20 years. Greg looked skeptical but desperate. "These are important people, Lily. They're expecting a professional." "I understand," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. "But I can do this. I know classical repertoire, jazz standards, contemporary pieces, whatever they need." The event coordinator joined their conversation, desperation clear on his face. "You really play? What level are we talking about here?" "I'm in my final year at the conservatory. I've performed at recitals, just not venues like this." The coordinator and Greg exchanged looks. The clock was ticking and they had no other options. "Let me hear something." "Quickly," the coordinator said. Heart racing, Lily approached the piano for the first time in 3 years of working there. She sat down, took a deep breath, and placed her hands on the keys. The ivory felt cool and perfect under her fingers. She began to play a piece she knew by heart, Debussy's Clair de Lune, letting the familiar notes calm her nerves. The restaurant didn't fall silent immediately, but gradually conversations quieted as the beautiful melody spread through the room. Lily closed her eyes, feeling the music move through her, forgetting momentarily about being a waitress, about her uniform, about the elite crowd watching with surprise. When she finished the piece, she looked up to see Greg and the coordinator staring at her with astonishment. "Why didn't you ever say anything?" Greg asked. Lily gave a small shrug. "Nobody ever asked." The coordinator checked his watch. "Can you play for 2 hours? We have a program here of what we need." Lily scanned the list. Mostly classical pieces she knew well, with some contemporary songs arranged for piano. She nodded. "I can do this." "Then get changed," Greg said, suddenly all business. "Jane has a black dress in her locker you can borrow. You've got 15 minutes. As Lily hurried to the staff room, heart pounding with a mixture of fear and excitement, she couldn't help but smile. After years of serving others while her dream waited patiently, tonight finally she would play. Lily's hands trembled as she changed into Jane's black dress in the cramped staff bathroom. The fabric felt smooth against her skin, nicer than anything she owned. It was a little loose around the shoulders but otherwise fit well enough. She stared at her reflection, barely recognizing herself. For years, these wealthy people had looked right through her as she served their meals. Now they would be looking at her, really seeing her for the first time. "You okay in there?" Jane's voice came through the door. "Greg's about to have a heart attack." "Coming," Lily called back, taking one final deep breath. She emerged from the bathroom feeling like an imposter. Jane whistled softly. "Look at you! No one would guess you were carrying plates of risotto 10 minutes ago." Lily managed a nervous smile. "Thanks for the dress. I'll get it cleaned before I return it." "Don't worry about that," Jane said, giving Lily's shoulder a squeeze. "Just go play like you did before." That was, well, it was something else. The clock was ticking. Lily quickly pinned her hair back more elegantly, while Jane lent her a pair of simple earrings. No time for makeup beyond a quick swipe of Jane's lipstick. It would have to do. When she walked back into the main dining room, the atmosphere had shifted. The regular dinner service continued in one section, but the other half had been transformed. The tables had been rearranged to focus on the grand piano in the corner. Well-dressed people mingled with champagne flutes in hand, their jewelry catching the light. A small sign announced the charity event, Music Education for Underprivileged Youth. The irony wasn't lost on Lily. Here she was, someone who could have benefited from such a program, about to entertain the very people who funded it. The event coordinator spotted her and hurried over, relief washing over his face. "There you are. We're starting in 5 minutes." He handed her a folder of sheet music. "Can you sight read if needed?" "Yes," she said, though her mouth felt dry. "I can sight read most pieces. Perfect. We'll start with background music during the cocktail hour, then a formal program of classical pieces during dinner, and end with some lighter contemporary arrangements." He checked his watch. "Any questions?" Lily flipped through the music. Most were pieces she knew, though a few would be challenging. "How will you introduce me?" "I mean, I'm not the pianist you hired." The coordinator hesitated. "We'll say you're a last-minute substitute from the conservatory. No need to mention that you work here." He looked at her apologetically. "Is that all right?" Lily nodded, understanding the unspoken message. These guests might not appreciate knowing their entertainment was usually their server. It stung a little, but this wasn't the time to worry about it. This was her chance to play on a magnificent instrument for people who might actually have the connections to help her career. "I need a moment with the piano," she said. "To adjust the bench and get comfortable." He nodded and led her to the Steinway. Lily sat down, adjusting the bench height. Her fingers caressed the keys without pressing them, feeling their weight and response. This was a far cry from her electric keyboard at home or even the decent upright pianos at school. This was an instrument that could sing with her, that could match every emotion she wanted to express. She tested it quietly, playing a few scales and chord progressions to get a feel for the action and tone. The piano responded beautifully, the sound rich and warm. Lily closed her eyes for a moment, letting herself connect with the instrument. When she opened them again, she noticed people were watching with curiosity. The formal introduction hadn't happened yet, but already she had an audience. Among them, she recognized faces from her tables, including the kind businesswoman who had mentioned sponsorships. The coordinator stepped up to a small microphone that had been set up near the piano. "Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to tonight's Benefit for Music. Education for Underprivileged Youth. We're delighted you could join us for an evening of fine dining and exceptional music." He continued with acknowledgments of major donors and a brief explanation of the charity's work. Lily's heart pounded so loudly she was sure people nearby could hear it. She wiped her palms discreetly on her borrowed dress. "Our featured pianist tonight is Lily Chen, a talented young artist from Westbrook Music Conservatory. Please enjoy her performance as you dine." With that simple introduction, it was time. Lily took a deep breath and began to play. She started with Debussy's Arabesque No. 1, its flowing, gentle melody perfect for setting an elegant mood without demanding full attention. Her nervousness melted away as she gave herself to the music. The restaurant's perfect acoustics carried the sound beautifully. creating a bubble of music that enhanced rather than interrupted conversations. For the next 40 minutes, she played background music as guests mingled and took their seats for dinner. She moved from Debussy to Chopin to Satie, keeping the selections light and flowing. Occasionally, she would glance up to see people watching her, their expressions ranging from polite appreciation to genuine interest. The waitstaff, her co-workers, served the first course. She caught Zoe's eye and her friend gave her a discreet thumbs up. Greg stood near the kitchen door, watching with an expression Lily couldn't quite read. Surprise mixed with something else. Pride, perhaps. During a brief pause between pieces, the coordinator approached with a glass of water. "You're doing wonderfully," he said quietly. "The guests are impressed. After the appetizer course, we'll move to the more formal part of the program." Lily nodded, sipping the water gratefully. "Any requests or changes to the program?" "Actually, yes. There's a guest here, Mr. Reynolds. He's on the board of the symphony orchestra. He specifically requested Chopin's Ballad No. 1, if you know it." Lily's heart skipped. The ballade was challenging, one of the most difficult pieces in the pianist's repertoire. She had been working on it for months but had never performed it publicly. "I know it," she said after a moment. "It's not completely performance-ready, but I can play it." "Excellent. He'll be thrilled. It's his favorite." The coordinator checked his watch. 5 more minutes of background music, then we'll have a short break before the main program. As he walked away, Lily felt a mix of terror and excitement. The ballade was a piece that separated casual pianists from serious ones. It required not just technical skill but emotional depth and maturity. Playing it for someone connected to the symphony orchestra was both a tremendous opportunity and a terrifying prospect. She returned to the keys, continuing with a Schubert impromptu. As her fingers moved across the keyboard, she noticed more guests were watching her now, conversations quieting. The music was becoming less background and more foreground. After finishing the impromptu, Lily took a short break. She stood and stretched discreetly, accepting a fresh glass of water from a server she didn't recognize. As she sipped it, the businesswoman from table 18 approached. "That was lovely," she said warmly. "I had no idea our waitress was such an accomplished pianist." Lily smiled, slightly embarrassed. "Thank you. I didn't exactly advertise it." "I'm Victoria Winters," the woman said, extending her hand. "I mentioned earlier that my foundation sponsors young artists." "I meant it." "I appreciate that," Lily replied, shaking her hand. "I'm in my final year at the conservatory, but funds are always tight." Victoria nodded understandingly. "Many talented people never get the chance to develop their gifts because of financial barriers. That's what tonight is all about." She handed Lily a business card. "Call my office next week. I'd like to hear more about your studies and goals." Before Lily could properly thank her, the coordinator was back, signaling that it was time for the main program. Victoria wished her luck and returned to her table. Lily took her place at the piano again as the room quieted. The coordinator made a brief announcement about the next portion of the evening, explaining that they would now enjoy a more formal recital during the main course. Looking out at the sea of expectant faces, Lily felt a moment of panic. These weren't just random restaurant patrons anymore. These were people who understood music, who supported the arts, who could open doors for her, or close them forever if she failed to impress. Among them sat Mr. Reynolds, pointed out discreetly by the coordinator. He was an older gentleman with silver hair and intelligent eyes, his attention fully on her. The man who had requested the Chopin Ballade, the man on the symphony orchestra board. Lily placed her hands on the keys. The room felt completely silent now, all pretense of this being background music gone. She began with a Bach prelude, its precise mathematical patterns helping to center her thoughts. The acoustics in the room were perfect, each note resonating clearly. As she played, she felt a connection forming between herself, the piano, and the audience. It was unlike anything she'd experienced in school recitals or practice rooms. Here, in this unlikely setting, wearing a borrowed dress after spending the day carrying plates, she was finally being heard as the musician she had always been. The Bach flowed into Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata, its familiar melancholy touching something deep in her. She thought of all the years of practice, the sacrifices, the moments of doubt, her mother working double shifts to buy her first keyboard, the nights she'd fallen asleep with sheet music scattered around her. the dream that had seemed so distant for so long. When she finished the Beethoven, there was a moment of complete silence before the applause began. It wasn't the polite, obligatory applause of people being courteous. It was genuine appreciation. As the applause faded, Lily knew what came next. The Chopin Ballade, the piece that had both thrilled and terrified pianists for generations. The piece that Mr. Reynolds was waiting to hear. She took a deep breath and began to play the simple, questioning melody that opened the piece, knowing that soon it would transform into one of the most passionate and technically demanding works in piano literature. As the notes flowed from her fingers, Lily felt something shifting in the room and in herself, the sense that after tonight, nothing would be quite the same again. The first gentle notes of Chopin's Ballade No. 1 in G minor flowed from Lily's fingers, deceptively simple and questioning. The dining room had fallen completely silent. Even the kitchen staff had paused their work, standing in the doorway to watch. The waiters moved like ghosts between tables, careful not to disrupt the spell being woven by the music. As the piece progressed, Lily felt a familiar sensation, the outside world beginning to fall away. There was only her, the piano, and the story that Chopin had written in notes nearly 200 years ago. She knew this piece intimately, had practiced it countless times in empty classrooms late at night when the conservatory was dark and silent. The gentle introduction gave way to more complex passages. Her hands began to move more quickly across the keys, the melody building in intensity. This was where many pianists faltered, where technical skill needed to merge perfectly with emotional expression. Lily had struggled with this section for months, sometimes staying up until dawn, repeating the same measures over and over. But tonight, something was different. Perhaps it was the quality of the Steinway beneath her fingers, responding to her lightest touch. Perhaps it was the rapt attention of the audience, their collective breath held as the music swelled. Or perhaps it was simply that after years of hiding her talent while serving others, she was finally being seen for who she truly was. Her fingers danced through the difficult runs, each note clear and distinct despite the increasing tempo. When she reached the thunderous octaves in the middle section, she felt the power of the grand piano for the first time, so different from her modest keyboard at home. The rich bass notes resonated through the room, vibrating in the chests of those listening. From the corner of her eye, she could see Mr. Reynolds leaning forward in his chair, his dinner forgotten. His eyes were closed, one hand slightly raised as if conducting along with her. Other guests had put down their forks and glasses, drawn completely into the music. As the ballade raced toward its dramatic conclusion, Lily poured everything into it. All the years of struggle, the dreams deferred, the passion that had kept her practicing despite exhaustion. Her hands flew across the keyboard in the final whirlwind of notes, building to the crashing chords of the finale. When the last note faded, there was a moment of complete silence. Lily remained frozen, hands still poised above the keys, heart pounding. Had she made mistakes? She knew there had been a few slips in the most difficult passages. To her highly trained ear, they felt glaring, unforgivable. Then the applause erupted. Not polite, restrained dinner party applause, but the kind usually reserved for concert halls. People were standing, their faces showing genuine amazement. Mr. Reynolds was on his feet, nodding with appreciation and what looked like respect. Lily felt heat rising to her cheeks. She stood and gave a small, awkward bow, unused to such attention. The coordinator rushed over, beaming. "That was extraordinary," he whispered as the applause continued. "Absolutely extraordinary. Are you sure you're still a student? That was professional level playing." Before she could respond, he turned to the microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen, wasn't that remarkable? Let's show our appreciation once more for the talented Lily Chen." Another round of applause followed. Lily noticed Greg, her manager, standing near the kitchen with an expression of complete disbelief. Jane and Zoe were clapping wildly, pride evident on their faces. For a moment, Lily's two worlds, waitress and pianist, collided in a surreal scene. "We'll take a brief intermission," the coordinator announced, "and then continue with more music during dessert." As the guests returned to their meals and conversations, many eyes remained on Lily. She stepped away from the piano on shaky legs, suddenly aware of how exhausted she felt. The adrenaline that had carried her through the performance was beginning to fade. Victoria, the businesswoman who had offered to help, approached again. "That was breathtaking," she said, genuine admiration in her voice. I've heard that piece performed by professionals who didn't capture its essence the way you just did." "Thank you," Lily replied, feeling overwhelmed by the praise. "It's been a piece I've worked on for a long time." It showed. "You played with both technical precision and emotional depth, a rare combination." Victoria glanced around the room. "And I'm not the only one who noticed. Several people have asked me about you, assuming I'm connected to the conservatory." Before Lily could respond, another figure approached, Mr. Reynolds himself. He was tall and distinguished, with the confident air of someone used to moving in elite circles. "Miss Chen," he said, extending his hand. "Thomas Reynolds. I must thank you for that performance. The ballade is a personal favorite of mine, and you did it justice." Lily shook his hand, trying to keep her own from trembling. "Thank you, sir. That means a lot, especially from someone connected to the symphony orchestra." He smiled. "Ah, so you know who I am. Good. Then you'll understand I don't offer praise lightly." He studied her for a moment. "You're in your final year at Westbrook?" "Yes, sir. Finishing my degree in piano performance. And what are your plans after graduation?" The question caught Lily off guard. Plans? Her plan had always been simple survival. Finish school while working, then hopefully find better-paying piano gigs than the occasional wedding or restaurant background music. The idea of having grander plans seemed like a luxury she couldn't afford. "I'm keeping my options open," she said finally. Mr. Reynolds nodded thoughtfully. "Smart. The music world is changing rapidly." He reached into his jacket and pulled out a card. "The symphony is holding auditions next month for our Young Artists program. It's competitive, but based on what I heard tonight, you should apply." Lily took the card with a hand that finally betrayed her nervousness. The symphony's Young Artist program was prestigious, a launching pad for serious careers in music. Students from her conservatory dreamed of getting in, and here was a board member personally inviting her to apply. "Thank you," she managed to say. "I'll definitely look into it." "Do more than look into it," he said firmly. "Audition. Mention that you met me if you like. Though after tonight I suspect your playing will speak for itself." He glanced back at the piano. "And what will you play for the second half?" The coordinator, who had been hovering nearby, jumped in. "We've planned some lighter contemporary pieces arranged for piano. Some Gershwin, a few film scores, perhaps a tasteful arrangement of a pop song or two." Mr. Reynolds nodded. "Excellent. I look forward to hearing your versatility, Miss Chen." With a slight bow, he returned to his table. Victoria, who had waited patiently during this exchange, smiled at Lily. "Well, that was interesting. Thomas Reynolds doesn't often take notice of new talent so explicitly." Is it? Is it real?" Lily asked quietly. "Or is he just being kind because of the charity event?" Victoria laughed softly. "Thomas Reynolds isn't known for charity when it comes to music. He's brutally honest, actually. If he says you should audition, he means it." She nodded toward the coordinator, who was signaling that the break was ending. "You'd better get back to the piano. We can talk more later." As Lily returned to the Steinway, her mind was spinning. Just hours ago, she had been setting tables and taking orders, invisible to most of these people. Now they were watching her, listening to her, seeing her, really seeing her, for the first time. The second half of the program was indeed lighter, designed to accompany dessert and coffee. Lily played Gershwin's Rhapsody in Blue, arranged for solo piano, its jazzy rhythms and blue notes a stark contrast to the classical pieces before. She followed with arrangements of film scores, the haunting theme from Schindler's List, the whimsical melodies from Amélie. With each piece, she felt her confidence growing. The piano responded to her every intention, from the gentlest pianissimo to the boldest fortissimo. She watched the faces of the audience, now relaxed and smiling as they enjoyed their desserts. Even the servers, her co-workers, seemed to move with more grace, as if the music was directing their steps. For the final piece of the evening, she chose an arrangement of a popular song that had been dominating radio stations for months. Transformed by her classical training, the simple pop melody became something more complex and interesting. She noticed younger guests nodding in recognition, while the older patrons seemed pleasantly surprised by the arrangement. When the final notes faded, the applause was warm and appreciative. The coordinator stepped up to the microphone one last time. "Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our musical program for the evening. Please join me in thanking the remarkably talented Lily Chen for stepping in at the last minute and providing us with such a memorable performance." The applause grew louder. Someone called out encore, and others joined in. Lily looked questioningly at the coordinator, who nodded with an encouraging smile. "One more," he said quietly. "Your choice." Lily thought for a moment, then settled on Liszt's Liebestraum No. 3, a piece about love and dreams that seemed fitting for this unbelievable evening. As she played the gentle, romantic melody, she let her gaze wander around the room. She saw Victoria watching with a pleased expression, Mr. Reynolds with his eyes closed again, absorbing the music, Greg standing by the kitchen door, shaking his head in amazement, and her fellow servers who had seen her day after day for years without knowing the music that lived inside her. When she finished, the applause was heartfelt. People stood once more, and Lily rose to bow properly this time, emotion threatening to overwhelm her. As the guests began to gather their things and say goodbyes, many stopped by the piano to compliment her personally or to ask questions about her studies. One elderly woman pressed her hand warmly and said, "My dear, I've attended the symphony for 40 years, and you play with more heart than many professionals I've heard. Never lose that." A young couple asked if she gave private lessons. A man who introduced himself as a record producer wanted to know if she had considered recording an album of classical pieces. Reimagined for modern audiences, it was all happening so quickly that Lily could barely process it. Business cards were pressed into her hands. Promises of contacts, opportunities, and connections were made. Through it all, she kept thinking, is this real? Will any of this matter tomorrow? As the crowd thinned, Lily remained at the piano, her fingers lightly touching the keys, though she no longer played. The restaurant was returning to normal. Servers cleared the last plates. The event staff began dismantling the special setup. Greg approached, still looking slightly stunned. "So," he said, "that happened." Lily laughed, the tension of the evening finally breaking. "Yeah, that happened. Why didn't you ever tell any of us you could play like that?" She shrugged. "Would it have made a difference with the schedule or the tables I was assigned?" Greg had the good grace to look embarrassed. "Fair point," he hesitated. "You know you can't go back to just being a server after this, right? Not in this restaurant, at least. These people will recognize you now." The reality of his words sank in. She hadn't thought about that. How this night would change her daily life, not just her potential future. "I still need the job," she said quietly. "At least until graduation." Greg nodded thoughtfully. "We'll figure something out." He glanced at his watch. "It's late. You should go home and get some rest. Tomorrow's going to be interesting." As Lily gathered her things and changed back into her uniform, she wondered what interesting would mean. Would the promises made tonight lead anywhere? Would the business cards in her pocket translate to real opportunities? Or would she wake up tomorrow and return to her regular life with just a beautiful memory to sustain her? She didn't know, but as she stepped out into the cool night air, something felt different. For the first time in years, the weight of constant struggle seemed lighter. For a few hours, she had been fully herself. Not a waitress who played piano, but a pianist who happened to wait tables. And people had seen her, really seen her. Whatever happened next, that knowledge would stay with her. Lily woke the next morning to sunlight streaming through her thin curtains and the sound of her phone buzzing repeatedly. She blinked, disoriented. Memories of the previous night flooding back. Had it all been a dream? The piano, the applause, Mr. Reynolds' card? She reached for her phone and saw a flood of notifications. Text messages from Zoe and other co-workers, missed calls from numbers she didn't recognize, and an email from Victoria Winters, the businesswoman who had promised to help. Sitting up in bed, Lily scrolled through the messages. Zoe had sent several excited texts. "OMG, Lily, you're famous. Someone posted a video of you playing last night and it's going viral. Check your Instagram. People are trying to tag you. Call me when you wake up." Lily's heart raced. A video? She rarely used social media. Who had time between work and school? But she tapped on the Instagram icon. Her normally quiet account had exploded with notifications. She had gained over 1,000 followers overnight. With shaking fingers, she found the video Zoe mentioned. Someone had recorded her playing the Chopin Ballade and posted it with the caption, "Our waitress sat down at the piano and left everyone speechless. Hidden talent, mind blown." The video already had over 50,000 views. The comments ranged from amazed, "Is this for real? She just stopped serving food and played that?" To skeptical, this has to be staged. No way a regular waitress plays like a concert pianist. To supportive, whoever she is, I hope she gets discovered. That talent deserves recognition. Lily put down the phone, feeling overwhelmed. This wasn't part of the plan. She had imagined perhaps getting a few contacts, maybe a chance to audition for something good. Not this. Not waking up to find herself becoming an internet sensation. Her phone rang again. This time it was Greg, her manager. Lily, are you seeing all this? The restaurant's phone has been ringing nonstop. People want to know if you'll be playing again tonight. Playing again? She echoed, still trying to process everything. I'm scheduled to work my regular shift, aren't I? There was a pause on the other end. That's actually why I'm calling. The owners saw the video. They want to talk to you about a different arrangement. What kind of arrangement? They're thinking of featuring you as a pianist on weekends. You'd still work as a server during the week if you want the hours, but they'd pay you separately to play Friday and Saturday nights. Better money than serving. Lily sat down on the edge of her bed, stunned. This is happening so fast. Welcome to the internet age, Greg said, a smile in his voice. Can you come in early today? Around 2? The owners will be there. After promising she would, Lily hung up and tried to gather her thoughts. She opened Victoria's email next. Dear Lily, I was thoroughly impressed by your performance last night. I've spoken with several colleagues on the board of my foundation, and we would like to discuss a potential scholarship to help you complete your studies without the financial strain of working full-time. Additionally, I've taken the liberty of sharing your contact information with a friend who runs a small recording studio. He specializes in helping classical musicians reach new audiences. Please call my office at your earliest convenience to discuss these opportunities. Lily read the email 3 times to make sure she wasn't imagining it. A scholarship? A recording opportunity? Just like that? Her phone buzzed yet again. This time it was a text from an unknown number. Ms. Chen, this is Thomas Reynolds. Impressive performance last night. I've spoken with the director of our Young Artists program. She would like to schedule your audition at your earliest convenience. Please call my assistant to arrange. Details. The text included a number with a professional signature line identifying him as a board member of the symphony orchestra. Lily set the phone down and took a deep breath. 24 hours ago, she had been worried about paying her rent and finding time to practice for her recital between shifts. Now she had the attention of important people in the music world. People who could open doors she'd only dreamed about. It didn't feel real. She got up and made coffee in her tiny kitchen, moving mechanically through the familiar routine while her mind raced. Looking around her small apartment, she took in the stack of music books on her second-hand table, the electric keyboard that took up too much space in the corner, the calendar on the wall marked with work shifts and class schedules. For 3 years, this had been her life. Constantly juggling, constantly tired, constantly wondering if she'd ever break through. And now, overnight, everything was changing. She showered and dressed carefully, selecting her nicest non-work clothes for the meeting with the restaurant owners. As she did her hair, she heard a knock at her door. It was Zoe, practically bouncing with excitement. "You're famous," she squealed, throwing her arms around Lily. "Have you seen how many views the video has now? Over 100,000. People are sharing it everywhere." Lily pulled her friend inside, still uncomfortable with the idea of being famous. "It's crazy," she admitted. "I don't know what to think." "What to think? You should be thrilled. This is what you've worked for, right? People are finally recognizing how talented you are." Lily nodded slowly. "I guess I always imagined it happening differently. More gradually, through auditions and performances at school, not going viral while wearing a borrowed dress." Zoe plopped down on Lily's small couch. "Who cares how it happened? The point is it happened, and now you have to decide what to do with it." Greg called. "The owners want to meet with me today. They're thinking of having me play at the restaurant on weekends." "That's just the beginning," Zoe said confidently. "Trust me, this is going to lead to bigger things." Lily showed her the email from Victoria and the text from Mr. Reynolds. Zoe's eyes widened. "See, it's already happening. The scholarship alone would change everything for you." "If it actually comes through," Lily cautioned. "People make promises all the time, especially when they're caught up in a moment." "You're such a pessimist," Zoe teased. "This is real, Lily. These are serious people with serious connections. They don't make offers like this lightly. Maybe Zoe was right. Maybe this was really happening. Lily glanced at the clock and realized she needed to leave for her meeting with the restaurant owners. "Wish me luck," she said as Zoe headed out. "You don't need luck," her friend replied with a grin. "You've got talent." The world's finally noticing. The restaurant was unusually busy for a weekday afternoon when Lily arrived. She noticed people looking at her, whispering to each other. Had that many people seen the video? It was an uncomfortable feeling after years of being practically invisible as a server. Greg met her at the staff entrance, looking both harried and amused. "There are people who've come in just hoping to see you," he said. "It's been quite a morning." He led her to the office in the back where the owners were waiting. Mr. and Mrs. Patel had owned the Gilded Room for 15 years, but rarely interacted directly with the staff. They were business people first, restaurateurs second. "Ah, there she is," Mr. Patel said, standing to greet her. "Our hidden virtuoso." Mrs. Patel smiled warmly. "We've owned that piano for 10 years and no one has ever played it like you did last night." "Thank you," Lily said, still uncomfortable with the praise. "It's a beautiful instrument. Please sit." Mr. Patel gestured to a chair. "We have a business proposition for you." The meeting lasted 30 minutes. The proposal was better than Lily had expected. They wanted her to play Friday and Saturday evenings, 2 3-hour sets with breaks. The pay was 3 times what she made serving, and she could keep her regular shifts if she wanted the additional income. "We've already had people calling to make reservations specifically on nights when you'll be playing," Mrs. Patel explained. "This could be very good for business. And for you," Mr. Patel added. "A regular performance venue, good pay. Exposure to our clientele, which includes many influential people in the arts." It was a good offer. A great offer, really. And yet a small part of Lily worried that it might limit her rather than launch her, keeping her playing background music in a restaurant instead of pursuing more serious classical opportunities. "Could I think about it overnight?" she asked. "This is all happening very quickly." "Of course," Mrs. Patel said. "But we'd like to announce it soon if you agree. Perhaps you could start this weekend." Lily promised to let them know by the next morning. As she left the office, she checked her phone and saw several missed calls. Her mother, her piano professor from the conservatory, and 2 numbers she didn't recognize. She called her mother first. "Lily, my phone has been ringing all day. Mrs. Wu from next door showed me a video of you playing piano in some fancy restaurant." "What's going on?" Lily laughed, feeling some of the tension release. Leave it to her mother to ground her. "It's a long story, Mom. Basically, I filled in for a pianist who got sick at the restaurant, and someone recorded it and put it online. Well, it's about time people heard you play. I've been telling you for years you should be on a stage, not carrying plates. I know, Mom, things might be changing. I've had some offers. Good. It's about time. Your talent is a gift. It should be shared." After promising to visit soon and tell her everything in person, Lily hung up and called her piano professor, Dr. Chen. No relation, though people often assumed there was one because of their shared last name. "Lily," he answered immediately. "I've been trying to reach you. I've had 3 different colleagues send me a video of you playing Chopin. I didn't know you were performing publicly." "It wasn't planned," she explained. "I was working and their pianist got sick. Well, however it happened, it was impressive. Your technique has improved significantly since your last lesson. The phrasing in the middle section especially. You've been working on that, haven't you?" "Yes," she admitted. "I've been practicing that piece whenever I can." "It shows." There was a pause. "Thomas Reynolds contacted me this morning. He mentioned you might be auditioning for the Young Artist program." Lily's breath caught. "He texted me, yes. I haven't replied yet. It's all happening so fast." "Listen to me," Dr. Chen said, his voice serious. "This is an extraordinary opportunity. The program only accepts 5 pianists each year, and it can launch a real career. You must audition. I'm not sure I'm ready for something like that." "Nonsense. What I heard in that video shows you're ready. You've always been your own worst critic, Lily. It's time to let others decide what you're capable of." After promising to think seriously about the audition, Lily hung up. Her head was spinning. So many possibilities suddenly opening before her, so many decisions to make. She walked through the restaurant toward the exit, glancing at the grand piano in the corner. It sat silently now, waiting for the next person to bring it to life. She resisted the urge to go to it, to feel those perfect keys under her fingers again. As she passed through the dining room, she noticed a young girl watching her, perhaps 10 or 11 years old, sitting with her parents at a late lunch. "Excuse me," the girl said as Lily passed their table. "Are you the piano lady from the video?" Lily stopped, surprised. "Yes, that's me." The girl's eyes widened. "I'm learning piano too. I've been taking lessons for 3 years." "That's wonderful," Lily said, smiling genuinely for what felt like the first time that day. "Do you like playing in a restaurant? My teacher says real pianists play in concert halls." The question, innocent as it was, struck at the heart of Lily's dilemma. What was a real pianist? Where did she belong? "I think real pianists play wherever there are people who want to listen," Lily answered carefully. "Concert halls are special, but so are restaurants and schools and living rooms." The girl nodded, considering this. "You made that hard piece look easy. Will you play again here sometime? I want to come listen." "I might," Lily said. "I'm still deciding." As she left the restaurant, Lily realized that was true of everything right now. She was still deciding. About the restaurant offer, about the audition, about Victoria's scholarship and recording opportunity. About what kind of pianist she wanted to be. For so long, her choices had been limited by necessity. Work this job, take these classes, practice when possible. Now suddenly she had options, real ones. And for the first time, the path ahead wasn't clear. She pulled out her phone and looked at the now viral video of herself. In it, she wasn't a waitress pretending to be a pianist. She was simply a musician, doing what she loved. Maybe that was the answer. Maybe she didn't have to choose just one path. With sudden clarity, she knew what her next steps would be. She would accept the restaurant's offer. It would provide steady income doing what she loved. She would call Victoria about the scholarship. Finishing her degree without financial stress would be life-changing. And she would audition for the Young Artists program. Because Dr. Chen was right, it was time to let others decide what she was capable of. One opportunity had led to another, then another. A door had opened and Lily was finally ready to step through it. 3 months had passed since that life-changing night at the Gilded Room, and Lily sat at her kitchen table surrounded by sheet music, concert programs, and a half-eaten sandwich. Her small apartment looked the same, but nearly everything else in her life had transformed. The scholarship from Victoria's foundation had come through within weeks. For the first time since she began at the conservatory, Lily didn't have to worry about tuition payments or textbook costs. She had cut back her serving shifts to just 2 lunches a week, enough to stay connected to her friends there, but not so many that she was constantly exhausted. Friday and Saturday nights were now reserved for her performances at the Gilded Room. What had started as simple 3-hour sets had evolved into something more special. Word had spread, and the restaurant was now fully booked on weekends, with people coming specifically to hear her play. Mr. and Mrs. Patel had even invested in professional recording equipment to live-stream her performances on the restaurant's social media channels. Lily glanced at the clock and quickly gathered her music into a folder. Her audition for the Symphony's Young Artists program was in 2 hours, and she wanted to arrive early to warm up and center herself. Her phone buzzed with a text from Zoe. "Good luck today. Not that you need it. You're going to blow them away." Lily smiled and texted back a quick thank you. Zoe had been her biggest cheerleader through all the changes of the past few months, even though it meant they worked together less often now. As she packed her bag, Lily's eyes fell on the framed article from the local newspaper that now hung on her wall. The headline read, "From serving tables to serving music, local waitress becomes overnight sensation." The story had run 3 weeks after her first performance, when the video had reached over 1 million views and people were coming from neighboring cities just to hear her play at the restaurant. The attention had been overwhelming at first. Reporters calling, strangers recognizing her on the street, social media messages from people she hadn't spoken to since high school. There had been television interview requests and even an offer to appear on a national talent. Accepted into the Symphony's Young Artists program, as one of only 5 pianists selected, she would receive mentorship from symphony musicians, performance opportunities in their community concert series, and access to masterclasses with visiting artists. "Your playing was exceptional," Catherine told her, "but it was your perspective that truly set you apart. We believe you bring something unique to the program, an understanding of how music can reach people in different settings, not just the traditional concert hall. That evening, Lily played at the Gilded Room with a lighter heart than ever before. During her break, she found Mr. and Mrs. Patel watching proudly from near the kitchen. "We have a surprise for you," Mrs. Patel said, handing Lily an envelope. Inside was a contract offering her a permanent position as the restaurant's featured pianist, with a generous salary and billing on all their marketing materials. "We want you to know that whatever else happens in your career, you always have a home here," Mr. Patel said. This is where it all began, after all. Lily thanked them both, deeply moved by their support. As she returned to the piano for her second set, she glanced around the restaurant, at the tables she had served for years, at the spot where she had stood nervously in a borrowed dress that first night, at the beautiful Steinway that had helped launch her new life. The journey from invisibility to recognition had been swift and unexpected. But the true journey, the one of becoming the musician she was meant to be, was just beginning.